Hey friends. So I'm having I think a continuation or a kind of an answer to what I posed yesterday, not necessarily as a question, but I was speaking about how as I feel a door opening into a new chapter of life, I was saying yesterday, and for a variety of reasons, I felt that happening over the past couple of weeks. I mean, it's been a longer process than that, but I had a surgery recently, and I knew going into that was a kind of event that just, if you're paying attention, it sort of shifts your life. Your life is kind of like there's a before and there's an after. And if we know that events like that have the potential to do that, then we are in a position to be a little more conscious about what happens as a result of that threshold, as a result of that transition. So that's kind of what I was going in with. That's what I was setting myself up for. And then coming out of it, it was like, whoa, it actually happened in an almost more intense way than I would have ever anticipated, and in a really great way. But yesterday I was talking about that. So if you want to hear detail about that, review my last couple days of posts. But I specifically yesterday I was thinking about and looking at what might come up in me, or at least what I want to be aware of as something, as elements within myself that might flare up and reveal themselves as obstacles to this transformation, to this transition. And I talked a little bit about how when I gain a sense of clarity in a particular domain of life, or just in life in general, there's sometimes this feeling of like frustration, impatience that I get with the world. Usually it's things and people external to myself. And I was talking a little bit about that and how, that's an interesting response, because I would think that if I were gaining a kind of deep clarity about life and becoming more connected to my kind of core purpose, core desires in this life, I would think that would engender a sense of peace, not a sense of impatience and sometimes frustration. And so, one option to sort of, in terms of looking at all that, is to say, well, maybe it wasn't really clarity. Maybe it's attachment to an idea, attachment to a certain outcome or something, and so the result is not actually a deeper grounding or a deeper settling. It's actually you're creating that friction by being attached to something, and you just think that you have clarity. That's option one. Another option, though, is that there really is clarity. There really is something shifting and changing in the way that we perceive where we are, where we're going, new opportunities arising, that kind of thing. But there are barriers, there are obstacles that have prevented us from really going there before. Like, there's a reason why we're at this threshold waiting to cross it into the next chapter of our life. And if we've been here before, if we have the sense that, like, this is a threshold where we've been wanting to cross it for a long time, but we haven't, then likely there's something going on that's sabotaging that. Something going on that's getting in the way. It's either an obstacle, it's a blind spot, it's a habit of self-sabotage, right? I mean, it could be we can there's 50 ways to avoid our purpose. But that's another option for why that feeling might be coming up, because as we gain clarity, the things that have been in the way in the past and the things within us that have created obstacles for ourselves start to flare up. They start to say, whoa, are you actually going to do something different? You're actually going to live a different way? No, that's not safe, or that's not okay, or whatever it is. Usually there's some sense of like, we're going to lose what has given us a sense of security or a sense of identity for a long time. There's something about that becomes threatened when we actually get serious about changing. And so that's an option. And in this particular case, I sort of feel like that's more what's going on than the option A version, which is like, I'm just wrong that I have any clarity. I don't think that that's actually true. I sense that something is shifting, and I am getting in contact with a sense of like, okay, this is where I want to go. And that the result of that has been something like today, where I kind of felt like I just came up against a bunch of my own shit, for lack of a better word. My own internally imposed, frequently subconscious or semi-conscious patterns that slow me down. That slow me down and that create friction. And whereas yesterday and the day before, I was sort of processing and looking at the way in which I was frustrated with the outside world, and how I was kind of, I assume, kind of projecting something onto the outside world, onto things and people out there. It's actually happening within me, but I'm projecting it out. Today, it was more like it came back to being inside me. And I was like, oh, it's in me. And of course, the truth is that it's both, right? Like we can, the internal obstacles are going to manifest externally. They can't not be that way. We have to, our interior and exterior lives mirror each other. So if I'm having a really strong emotional reaction to something in the external world, it's almost like, just wait a minute and see if that thing out there or that person out there, whatever it is, if some version of the experience I'm having or the conflict I'm having doesn't show up in an entirely interior way sometime soon. And that's kind of what happened today. I was like, oh God. So I'm looking at this limiting behavior and this habit that I have. It's like kind of undermining my progress. It's kept me stuck. So here we are, right? Like, so that's actually in a weird way, it's good news, because it's like, I'm seeing it. I'm here. I'm associating it with the things that are changing and that are moving. I'm not like treating that as though, yay, great, change, lovely. This is just a bad thing that needs to get out of my way. Like, I'm actually sort of like, I see that there's a relationship between those things, and I see that this thing over here is actually a historic pattern that has kind of frequently, or at least more than once, been responsible for kind of keeping a pattern locked in. And the interesting thing was today, I started to look at it, started to unpack it a little bit. And then at some point I was like, I was getting that feeling, like that dark, this is miserable. I'll never get out of it. I hate myself. I can't. I know I want, dark. I don't know if you've ever been there. Unpleasant feeling, icky feeling. And I was, and then somewhere, this is why I'm doing this post, somewhere in that, I was like, oh, wait a minute. But I've been here before too, and it doesn't, what I'm feeling right now is not true. It's a pattern of, it's true, it's a true pattern of experience, it's a true cycle, but it's not real, and the impressions and the experiences that I have while undergoing this cycle are never real, they're never final, they're never unchangeable, they're just points on a cycle. And so I was like, okay, knowing that, maybe I can be at this point in the cycle, see whatever I need to see, take a look at it, don't deny it, don't repress it, but also don't get too upset about it, don't get too worked up, don't let the emotion of this take me into a kind of a low, because why do that? Who needs that? What's the point, right? Does it actually, there's only a point to going on those emotional rides if something about the emotional ride renders a new experience, renders some sort of insight that helps us grow and generally outgrow the need for that cycle. So that's kind of where I sort of landed at the end of kind of processing this. I was like, wow, okay, first of all, interesting. I literally just was speaking about what might come up as a sort of block for me in this situation. That I had kind of anticipated it. And I don't think that I was like manifesting it. I think I was actually sort of just knowing myself and knowing the high point of the cycle, being able to identify, oh, this is a really high point on the cycle. I feel great. And that's lovely. And if you can review my posts, and I'll talk a little actually kind of in detail about some of the experiences we're coming through and some of the just really inspiring, expansive, expanding, evolving energy that was coming through. But at the same time, in order to actualize change, in order to make a change, just take a step forward, I find it helpful to sort of be acknowledging of the things that have blocked us before. They're not real. They're not any more real than the reality that we're moving towards. In fact, they might even be less real. But they're there. And if they sort of are allowed to hijack us, if they're allowed to take us on the ride and convince us that the ride is real, we can just kind of go back into that orbit, go back into that cycle, have to do it all again. So what I did today felt like an emotional, I just took, as the orbit is happening, the ride is happening, I was just kind of like, wait a minute, maybe I don't need to go on the ride. Maybe the ride can happen. Maybe I'm still tied to it in some way, but I don't have to like be. I can regard this from some distance. Sadhguru talks about carrying karma, which is basically the weight of all of our knowledge, all of our memory, all of our history, multi-lifetime cosmic psychic imprinting. And he talks about liberation is just being able to put the bags down. Doesn't mean you no longer carry karma. If you no longer carried any karma, our body and everything about us would literally disappear. And in some traditions, that's the goal, to fully process our karma, and we don't have to be reborn, right? That's like the Buddhist notion of enlightenment. We don't have to be reborn into this cyclical life of samsara. We actually just get done with it. And I think Sadhguru speaks about, well, yes, maybe that is true, that maybe there is a point where we decide, this is my last lifetime. I'm not doing this again. I'm finishing this here. But along the way, as long as we are still here, as long as we have a body, as long as we're in this world, as long as we exist, we're going to carry karma. But can we put it down? Can we step off the ride for a minute and just watch it? Instead of thinking that it is us. And I felt like that's what I caught myself getting pulled into the ride today, and I sort of took a step back and I was like, wait, maybe I don't have to go there. So yeah, kind of intense, but I take it as a really good sign, and I look forward to sort of tracking my experience and tracking my awareness of how this transition takes place and kind of what comes up, because so far I've kind of been right. I've been able to anticipate what's coming and see, oh yeah, okay, here comes a pattern that's not helping me. What am I going to do with it? How do I acknowledge it, not repress it, not try to pretend it's not happening or react with that anger that was manifesting externally very recently, and instead of that, just become conscious of it, settle and observe. So that's where I'm at today, folks. Thanks for watching. Appreciate you. If this sparks anything for you, or if it reminds you of anything in your own experience, let me know. Shoot me a comment. But I appreciate you tuning in. Thanks. I'll see you soon.